All right, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. So we are doing a session that is in relation to Reach Them All. So we are district ambassadors for the Reach Them All program, which Karen Harper, who is in the back here right now, she trained us putting all this together. We are very involved with this. So our session is really going to be aligned with that and how can you integrate computational thinking and computer science skills into your classes. So we're going to introduce ourselves, talk about why all of this is important. Cue back, please. Thank you. Why all this is important, why we're actually focusing on this, and why did we want to do a session. We're going to introduce the computational thinking practices, and then we're going to do a little activity together. So those of you who are sitting in the back, we hope that you will also participate as well. And we might do a little bit of moving around in here to make that happen. And then we will close off and give you guys some resources to share. Okay, so meet the presenters. I am Amanda Gray. I am we are all technology integration coaches for our district. So I am Amanda.
I'm Katie Robertson. The Tackling Tech is my Twitter handle, but it's kind of false. I really don't tweet, but maybe if you follow me, I'll try and be better. And then, yes, she has a wonderful channel. And then in the back, we have Bryn James. And she's monitoring the chat. She's kind of our room monitor doing double duty, but she's also going to come up and talk for just a second as well.
All right, so we don't know if the Slido is going to work. Doesn't look like it's going to work. So let's go by a show of hands. We're just kind of trying to gauge who we have as teachers here. So let's start with the two basics for this summit here. Do we have any STEM teachers in here? Cool. Computer science? Cool. What about just science? Math, English, yeah, cool. Social studies, related arts, yeah, okay, I'm not the only one. And what am I missing? Anything? What? We have admin in here? Hi, this is awesome, cool, admin, district level, we're district level, so sometimes we kind of forget about us. So, district level, amazing. Our Slido is just going to be word cloud of what we teach, so cool. We'll go ahead and move on from that. Okay, so we're looking up here at all of these words, and these are the typical 21st century, transferable, all of the buzzwords skills that we should hopefully already be teaching our students. We are striving for teaching this and instilling all of these skills within them. Okay, so this session is really going to explore using more of the computational thinking language to help emphasize a lot of these skills that we're teaching with our students. And how can we use these computer science standards and skills, everything that the movement that Tennessee is going for in the next year or so, to be using in our classes. So that is why we are focusing on this session today. And again, we're going to be talking a lot about the stuff that we learned through the Reach Them All program.
This is my little part that I get to kind of come to you from the back. So we're just going to be looking at defining those practices today with our computational thinking. The biggest part we want you to know is just that strategic thought process of those skills and practices and those fundamentals to the computer science. And it's a great entry point for teachers to learn how to integrate that computer science using these 4 terms. And these are the 4 terms that we're going to look at in depth today. The first one is decomposition, which is just to break a problem into smaller, more manageable parts. The algorithm, which is that step-by-step process. I am an ELA teacher by heart, so my ELA people, I feel you, but algorithm is an easy way to integrate that computer science into your classroom. Pattern recognition, identifying those similarities or patterns across a problem when you're evaluating any data that you have. And then abstraction, just focusing on that important information and being able to remove that unnecessary details, which also can apply to that ELA standard as well.
So I really love this quote here, and I'll give $10 to anybody that can pronounce this man's name. But computer science is no more about computers than astronomy is about telescopes. It goes so much deeper than that. And as teachers, we can easily introduce computer science to our students by introducing and integrating those foundational concepts of computational thinking strategies. And so what I'm going to do on the next 2 slides is kind of model a typical 3rd grade math lesson, and I'm hoping that you can hear me integrate those computational thinking strategies that Bryn just introduced to you all. And what we did was took your 3rd grade standard, solved 2-step word problems using 4 operations, represent these problems using equations with a letter standing for the unknown quantity, assess the reasonableness of the answers using mental computation and estimation. And in reading that standard alone, you can kind of pick out those computational thinking strategies that they're going to apply when solving these types of problems. And so this was an example of a target that I had in my 3rd grade classroom. I can apply my knowledge of algorithms to solve 2-step contextual problems. So right there, I'm already integrating computational thinking within that target itself. But we kind of went back and forth on this of, oh, we can just have our teachers kind of use that in their target next year, let them slowly get adapted to it. But sometimes it's not as easy as it sounds to just simply put those terminology in your target. And so I'm going to make connections to all 4 of those strategies, but they don't always naturally fit. So just use them whenever it's natural. But I just wanted to hear or have you all hear those examples within this one lesson, because this standard does lend itself very well to all 4 computational thinking strategies. Yes.
All right. She's mentioned a really good point about how a lot of times it is easy to recognize that you can integrate all 4 of the computational thinking skills and strategies. But when you're thinking about it, even though you're like, I can do all 4, this is great, sometimes all 4, it's just going to make it a little more complicated. So if you really want them to tie in, identify, and maybe really understand some concepts, even if you can make connections to all of them, sometimes it's easier just to choose one. And just want to make that clear. That's kind of the point we're trying to get across with that too.
Yes. So this is a 3rd grade standard that's already hard in itself. And as I'm teaching this, you'll be like, oh my gosh, I would never say all of that in one lesson. But this is a standard that you're going to hit multiple times throughout the year. So maybe this is the 5th day that I've taught 2-step word problems, and they've heard the vocabulary in the past, so just slowly introducing more and more so that when they hear it as they get older, it's not brand new information, and they're comfortable with the concepts. All right, guys, let's look at our target for the day. It's asking us to apply our knowledge of algorithms to solve 2-step contextual problems. Let's decompose or break apart our target. One of the first words I want us to focus on is algorithms. Remember, those are those step-by-step processes. We're going to figure out our algorithm that we need to use, our operations, by looking at the patterns that we see in those keywords. So that could involve multiplication, addition, division, or even subtraction. And remember, when we're solving 2-step word problems, we need to decompose or break those apart as well so that we can solve them with each piece at a time. Let's look at our first problem. It says Angela and Dwight are both 34 years old and have the same number of cats. Angela sorted her cats into 5 groups with 6 cats in each one, and Dwight equally sorted his cats into 10 groups. How many cats were in Dwight's groups? Well, all right, kids, is there any information that we can take out of this problem? Let's use abstraction and focus on what's important and eliminate anything that's unnecessary. So right off the bat, we can eliminate their age. We don't need to know that. Next, let's go ahead and, again, decompose our word problem into those 2 steps. And let's focus on the first part. So Angela and Dwight have the same number of cats. Angela sorted her cats into 5 groups with 6 cats in each one. We can draw that picture to represent Angela's groups. And then as I draw the cats in each one, ooh, do you guys see a pattern? That 6 is being repeated 5 times. So when we are figuring out our operation, we know that's multiplication, anything that's being repeated equally. That algorithm wants us to write it blank groups of blank. So I'm going to write my equation in that specific order of 5 groups of 6 equals 30 cats. Now I'm going to use that information or that answer from part 1 to solve part 2. So Dwight sorts his cats into 10 groups, and we're sorting 1 cat into each group equally until we get to our total, which is 30. Remember what operation that would be. Let's look at that pattern. We're sorting it equally. That must be division. Just like with multiplication, that algorithm wants us to write it in a specific order. So when we're writing a division equation, you want to write that total number first, divided by the number of groups. So 30 divided by 10 equals 3 cats in each. So as I went through that lesson, hopefully you were able to hear those 4 computational thinking strategies. And you probably all have had a kid at one point in your career say, when am I ever going to use this when I grow up? Raise of hands. Raise of hands. Yeah. They may not ever solve 2-step word problems, even though they really would in this example. But you can at least say the strategies that you use when you solve this, you will apply in your future career. You are going to decompose things. You're going to analyze patterns. You're going to do step-by-step processes no matter what career you take. So what we're going to have you all do now is work with a small group around you, about 4 to 5 people, and Amanda is going to pass out some scenarios. And on these cards, you have a standard, as well as like a mock lesson, we'll say. And what we want you to do is work with your group and think about those computational thinking strategies that you could use when teaching that lesson. And this may not be content that you're familiar with at all, but we want that.
I'm just going to give a little more information about this right here. So again, what we're trying to do with this activity is we're really just trying to get you to make some connections. So in the activity or the lesson that you have, the standard you have, what kinds of connections can you make to decomposition, pattern recognition, abstraction, algorithms? And we will put that back on the board just in case that's still a little unfamiliar to you. We will have that chart back on the board. The easiest way to split up into groups, these tables are all in groups of 8. So for those, or it was 8, not that one. Not those. Awkward. Okay. Well, now I'm lying. So if you are sitting in the back, if you wouldn't mind, just for this activity, moving to some chairs, and then we will have you discussing with your groups individually, and then we will group the people together at the tables. Okay, so don't feel like you need to bring all your stuff. You actually don't need a writing utensil. We have markers up here. So if you wouldn't mind, if you're sitting down out in the back, please come and join us at a table for this activity, and then we'll give you guys some time to look over the scenarios and have a discussion with people at your table. Let's do groups of 4, yeah. And so like you could do groups of 4 that way, and I could do groups of 4 this way. Okay. Okay. So 2:10? 2:10? 2:08. 2:08. Do you want me to set a timer? Or set on my watch? Sure. Okay.
Okay, guys, we hear a lot of great discussions. We just kind of wanted to gauge the room. Fist of 5, how many more minutes do you need to discuss with your group? Oh, perfect. All right, so what we're going to have you do now, we heard some really great discussions and there was some debate within the smaller groups, and you may have noticed that you have the same color card as other people in the room, and what we would like for you to do is to meet up with another group of the same color card and just discuss what were the similarities that you all found in that lesson. Were there ways that you could integrate those computational thinking strategies, or did another group find a way that you maybe not have thought of? And then also, how did you feel during the process? Was this a standard that you were familiar with? Was it not? Was it still relatively easy? Were there keywords within that standard that kind of help you pick out the computational thinking strategy? Just kind of have those discussions, because what we would love ultimately is to make you feel like you're empowered to go back to your building, and even though that's not your content-specific area on this scenario card, you can help your fellow teachers and say, hey, it's not this scary, but here's how you can integrate computational thinking. Okay.
Just a little bit to that too. When we talk with our groups, you'll notice that we have posters around the room. So these groups, I think, are small enough that we should be able to just gather one group. Like I see a lot of blues over here and the greens over here. We might want to split that group into two, but use your best judgment and pick a poster, just jot down some ideas. What we're really hoping is that you guys are talking to each other and recognize, oh, we thought of something similar. Maybe we thought of something different. We didn't even think of that, right? So make the discussing, because you guys have the same scenarios with your color cards, and you might not have talked about the same thing. One thing that I was telling one of the groups back there, I know there's a lot of kind of boom, boom, boom fast that we're going through. When we did the Reach Them All training with Karen back here, it was 2 whole days, right? So we took very small chunks of it and tried to bring it down just a little bit and give you small chunks of what we were learning and how to do integration into your classes. So we have just a little bit of time left for you guys to have discussions, and then we could talk about it as a group. Okay, so let's go like blues can go over here, greens can go over here, and it's purple, right? Purples can go over here, and use your best judgment. If you see like a big crowd at one paper, maybe start another paper. We have the markers inside the little cubbies on the table. That's where we put the markers so they wouldn't roll away, okay? So greens over here, blues over here, purples back here. Go ahead and move and discuss with your groups. Yeah, the tech guy in the back, Rockstar. And there's nothing specific on here. We're just giving you a place to drop a note catcher to drop your information. Guiding question is similarities and differences. Similarities and differences.
Okay, so we said that decomposition happens naturally, that you have this huge span of time and you're breaking it down into smaller chunks, pieces. And we also said abstraction, where when you have your timeline, you are just focusing on the main section. It's worth
said that kids might use that when it's during an independent, like when they get to that last part and analyze. Good job. Yes, I think. Precomputed, like breaking it down, yeah. Yeah, times one, that's good.
All right, just for time and reference, we got less than 2 minutes before we go back to the next part, but it looks like we're still working. Do you guys need a little more than 2 minutes? Are you guys okay? We have plenty of time. We're doing great with this session, so we're not worried on time. If you guys want more discussion, let's go about 2 or 3 more minutes.
Plus. Yeah.
No, so what we're gonna do next is have one person from the group kind of nominate themselves. And you'll share out with the rest of the group to just explain what the lesson was about so that they can have a better understanding of how you all made those connections and which content area it was and how it connected to those computational thinking strategies. I'll let you all debate who wants to share out.
Oh! Plus, no.
I second the nomination.
Are you her coach? You owe her dinner then. Hey, that's right. What grade do you teach?
Third grade.
Oh.
She started in January.
Whoop, whoop, whoop.
Is a rock star.
Yay.
Staying that neutral.
No. Look. She threw that in there because she's like, she saw me looking, I'm going, oh, she's in her group, but she's in her group.
Tell her in the car on the way back.
Okay.
All right, so while we still have you up here in your groups, let's go ahead and just kind of wrap up with the discussions we have. We have one more share out that we're going to do, and we want to give you plenty of time to know about this. So we've switched the slide up here. And what we're going to do is in each of our pods, this worked out perfectly. We just have 3 pods here. Each pod has a different scenario. So we would love for each of the groups to share out just what were some of the computational thinking skills or strategies. Thanks, Katie. Great. Wow, sorry. Skills or strategies that you came up with for your lesson. Okay, and we're going to give you about 3 minutes to kind of touch on the main points that you guys want to talk about, and either volunteer or voluntold somebody in your group to share, okay? It doesn't matter who. You can actually have more than one if you want. That's cool. We will pass the microphone around, so the virtual people, we have like 43 people watching virtually. It's very exciting, but we want them to hear your answers too, okay? So that's why we say nominate or voluntold 1 or 2 people to share, so that way we can hand a microphone over, okay? We're going to give you about 3 minutes to discuss, and rock, paper, scissors, or whatever you want to do. Okay. Go ahead. Oh, you already did it? Almost. Are you guys good? Are you ready? Okay, we don't even need to have a timer. Great. Who wants to go first? Don't make me spin around the room. I'm not going to do it. Okay, great. Tell us about your scenario, because they don't know. They don't know what your scenario is. And then tell us what computational thinking skills or strategies you guys came up with.
Okay, ours was the content music. It was a 7th grade music standard, and it was about developing and applying strategies to address technical and expressive challenges in a varied repertoire of music. We took the 4 different things: decomposition, algorithm, abstraction, and pattern recognition, and we broke it down into like how we would teach this lesson using each one of those words and strategies. So we talked about separating the music into, because the lesson was about like learning the parts of the music that they don't know already so that it can make it flow. So we talked about decomposing it into the parts of the song that we already know and the parts we don't know. And then algorithm, that's the actual like reading of the music on paper, the actual playing of the instrument, the step-by-step process to that. And then abstraction, the part that we can kind of throw away a little bit is the part we already know. We already know how to play that part of the song. And then pattern recognition, a lot of songs repeat, like after the bridges and things like that. So recognizing when that song's going to repeat. So how many times do I need to learn that part because it's going to come up again and again. And then the composition of putting it all back together because the song doesn't sound right if it's not in the way it's supposed to be. So.
I love it. I'm the former music teacher, so that was awesome. I was super excited. Great job, you guys. That was really awesome. We can just keep on going that way if you want. Go around.
And I'm just curious, do any of you teach music in this group? No. Okay.
We had a social studies lesson that was arranging events in chronological order. So it began with the teacher kind of modeling how to take significant events and put them in order of how they happened. And then the kids get in pairs, and they do that with the events of a school day. And then lastly, the kids are given a timeline, and they have to interpret what are the order of the events, what's the duration, and what's significant about what is on the timeline.
So the connections we made to the computational thinking components are for decomposition. They had to break down the events in their life and put the timeline in order. They also had to do that with the events of the school day. For abstraction, they had to focus on the important events and not the things that were not as important. For algorithm, there was a step-by-step process of how to create the timeline. And then for pattern recognition, they could make connections to the teacher's timeline and then the school day in order to put theirs in order at the end.
Great job, you guys. And did we have any social studies teachers? No? All right, cool. Our plan is working.
Okay, ours was a fourth grade writing and reading standard. It's about the main idea of a text and explain how it is supported by key details, and then they have to summarize the text. So several of the computer science terminology was used, and we talked about the decomposition where they're going to break it down into like what the main idea is and then the supporting details. Pattern recognition, we know that in paragraphs you have the main idea is the first one, and then you talk about the supporting details, and you have the conclusion. And then we talked about the similarities and differences, and then with the algorithm, just there's a step-by-step process to do that. And if you teach kids how to do that when it comes to the TCAP writing, it'll help them with doing a good job on the writing. And then the last one was abstraction, getting rid of some of the ideas that really weren't important so they could really focus on the main idea and the key details.
We had one, two? Awesome, cool. All right, guys, that was all the interacting that we needed to do today. If you want to put your cards up here while you head back to your seats, that'd be awesome. We're going to wrap up this session. We're almost out of time. Thank you so much. Thank you. What's next? Perfect. Thank you. Thank you.
And I'm just curious, as you guys are heading back to your seat, by show of like thumbs, was it kind of easy to do this? Was it difficult? I know a lot of that wasn't the content that you teach on a normal basis, but do you feel like you could share this knowledge with your coworkers and kind of help them integrate those strategies into their lesson? Okay, I'm like seeing a lot of thumbs up, which is good.
Yes, that's what we want. Okay, so again, one of the main points of us choosing to present about this is we want to help teachers teach other people how to integrate this. We want to empower you guys to feel confident to go back and say, hey, I have some ideas on how we can do this, or I've done something similar to this before, and I think I can help with this. So one of the resources that we have created is we have a computational thinking practices poster, and all we've done is gone through with each of the content areas and each of the computational thinking strategies, and we have a chart of ideas of things that you can be teaching, some content connections. It is not an exhaustive list. Okay, there are plenty of other things that you can do with this, but we just started to jot down a bunch of ideas. So this is also a resource that you can take back to your districts or to your schools and maybe show your admin, hey, like we have some ideas already for you, and then you can feel free to add more ideas to that as well. And the TSIN Computer Science website is also another great place for you to find some resources. It has everything from the Reach Them All program, which is what we participated in, and the training that we did. So if you want to learn more, if you want more resources, they have a great website. And I believe this presentation, you can find this in the app if you have not taken a picture or written this down. So you should have access to these slides again at the end if you ever want to go back and get any of the graphics or resources that we have provided for you. I think that might be it. So thank you guys. Before we leave, are there any questions? Can we clarify anything? 5 minutes. Thanks, Bryn. No? All right, cool. You guys get to leave early. Congrats. Thank you guys for coming.